Good evening and welcome to the Village of Westmont Committee of the Whole meeting for September 30th, 2010. I'd like to begin by having our clerk please take the roll call.
Mayor Ron.
Here.
The clerk's here. Trustee Emery. Here. Trustee Fleming.
Here.
Trustee Forsley.
Here.
Trustee Klebanow.
Here.
Trustee Scott.
Here.
Trustee Seneca.
Here.
Manager Searle.
Here.
Attorney Zemanek.
Here.
Acting Police Chief and Deputy Liquor Commissioner Gunther.
Here.
Economic Development Director and Assistant Manager Kimball.
Here.
Fire Chief Trout.
Here.
Budget Analyst Parker.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First item are the minutes. The committee, the whole meeting held September 16th and board meeting held September 20th. Any questions? Comments, remarks? Okay, thank you. Moving right along, open forum. We have one open forum request before us this evening from Tom Sullivan at 412 North Park Street. Mr. Sullivan.
Good evening. The reason why I'm here is I feel that the village evidently is in such dire straits that they're writing and issuing tickets, I mean, by the thousands. My son was stopped last week for 5 miles an hour over. Who in this room hasn't went 5 miles an hour over? Then they towed the car, which cost me $500 to the village, and another $160 for the towing company. He received his first citation right after he got his license in August. We went to court. The judge threw it out. He said it was just a joke. Now, these kids are coming back from football practice from the high school, and every time I talk to them, they say, oh, we're always getting pulled over. Why don't the police work on the south side where all the gangs are and the drug dealers are in these apartment complexes instead of sticking on my side of town and writing citations? What I request from this board is from January 1st to today's date, can they publish how many tickets were issued in Westmont compared to our Downers Grove? And when we see that they're almost double, we wouldn't see a pattern here. I really believe that Westmont, because the car sales are down and the homes aren't selling, that this is just another way to make more revenue. Now, I mean, I got a good kid, and Mr. Forsley, you know my son, and he's just disgusted with the police. When they pulled him over, he said, can I call my father? They said, shut your mouth, you can't call him. And if you speak again, we're going to arrest you for disorderly conduct. That's not how you talk to kids. How do you think they're going to respect the police when they don't get no respect from them either? So what I'm asking for this board is to get the numbers out so the public can see that, in fact, I believe this is just another money-making opportunity for the village. Just keep writing citations. I spoke to people on my block. Their brothers have gotten tickets. My wife's friend comes from Franklin Park, got 2 tickets. I mean, my son, he goes to and works for JC's Haunted House in Lombard, never a problem. Drives to his grandmother in Elmhurst, never a problem. Westmont, a problem. I think there's a big pattern here for the village is just trying to make additional revenue by pulling over people and giving them tickets. When we went to court for his first citation, there were hundreds of people all getting tickets from Westmont, not Downers Grove, Westmont. So what I'm asking for is that they would publish so we can compare the other towns and just see how many tickets are written in this town. I don't think that's a very big demand that I'm asking for.
Everyone's entitled to their opinion. You may be right, you may be wrong. The one thing I've learned sitting on this board is when someone comes before you with a question like this, you have to hear both sides of the story. I can't answer your question as to whether or not your son had his car towed legally or illegally. Normally when you get stopped for speeding or whatever reason, you get a ticket and you drive away. I don't understand why he had to have the car towed. There must be a reason, and I'm sure there is a reason for that. I've had a similar situation with another parent who had the family car towed, and her story seemed perfectly logical to me until I looked into it with the police department and found out that the boy that was driving the car did not have a legal driver's license. And both of the boys that were in the car had a previous arrest record. And there were also some drugs involved in that situation. In that situation, they towed the car. I don't know what your situation is. I can't make a judgment on that. So if you're asking me to give you an answer on that, I can.
I'm not looking for an answer.
But as far as our police department is concerned, I support our police department, and I can't remember the last time I got a comment other than this situation similar to yours, where somebody was pulled over, young adults, and had to have their car towed. Other than that, I haven't received any complaints, and I don't know if anyone else sitting here on the board has either, but we will take your comments to heart, pass those along to our police department, but I will personally find out what the situation is with your own individual
I just think
son.
when I got there was 5 police cars there. I thought, this is crazy. You know, but yet when I drive by Suburbanite Bowl, I see 2 police officers sitting there drinking a cup of coffee. I don't think they're on patrol, but that's okay though, right? They ought to check into that. Drive by Suburbanite and you'll see 2 police officers just sitting there shooting the breeze. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other comments from board members? Thank you. Right along our reports. The first thing I'd like to mention is that there are 2 proclamations, one for Community Planning Month proclamation and South DuPage Crop Walk Day proclamation. Both of these are rather lengthy, so I will dispense with the reading of these, but all of the trustees have a copy, and it's my understanding in talking to Ron Searle, they're also on the website. So those will be on our agenda for approval on Monday. The next thing I would like to ask is to have the manager and our police department investigate. There are a lot of motorcycles on the road these days in Westmont and Downers Grove, everywhere. Many of these motorcycles do not have any mufflers on them whatsoever. Can we as a village require motorcycles to have mufflers on them? If I drive a car that doesn't have a muffler on it, I will be stopped and arrested, given a ticket. But I never see anyone getting pulled over with a motorcycle. Now, I have nothing against motorcycles. I drove a motorcycle myself for a number of years. But it's just the sound deafening noise, particularly at 3 o'clock in the morning when you happen to be trying to sleep. And this is the disturbance that we all have to be faced with. So I don't know if our deputy chief has any reaction to this, but I would like to know what can be, if anything, done about this. I know there's a lot of police officers and public people that also drive motorcycles, and I have nothing against that whatsoever. It's just the loud noise of the ones that do not have mufflers.
Sure, the state statute that governs loud mufflers covers all motor vehicles. So we do have discretion on whether we write a car with a loud muffler or a motorcycle with a loud muffler. Oftentimes, from what I understand, and I can tell you from personal experience, one of my family members who bought a loud muffler for the safety reason of being heard, where motorcycles are smaller on the road, they're more of a target for a car. They purposely make their motorcycles loud to be heard and observed. And obviously, at 3 o'clock in the morning, there's an issue with people that are trying to sleep. So we'll weigh that when we look at the issue, but certainly we can tighten up our discretion on who we issue citations for loud mufflers.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. I'd appreciate your looking into that. And next, I would like to mention that our deputy chief, myself, and our village attorney just finished the latest rounds of liquor violations and tobacco violations for individuals that are served that are underage. It seems to me that in some of these situations, some of these businesses are building these tickets, these violations into the daily course of their business, and the fines, they pay the fine and they go on, and we've had 2 violations. We had one that had 3 violations. I would like to look into correcting this. Number one, I'd like to have I talked to the deputy chief, and we're going to work out a system where everyone that serves liquor or sells tobacco is going to have to be required to take a refresher course every year or every other year, so that they know what the laws are. We don't like to have to go out and arrest people for serving minors, and with more public education, maybe that would become less and less of a problem. There's a lot of information available, and as you mentioned to me, we give a lot of that information to the liquor holding establishments, that sell tobacco products, but the violations still occur. They occur in every village, not only in the village of Westmont. I think perhaps we don't have any more than any other town. But anyhow, I would like those rules to become more strict at the first of the year. So if we can get a system in place to improve that, I would be most appreciative.
Mayor, I have a question about that. Do we require, does Westmont require all bartenders to be Bassett trained?
No, the village does not require.
I know that the Knights of Columbus require their members, if they're going to be
Right.
serving alcohol, they must be Bassett trained, or they're not allowed to serve alcohol.
They receive
Could we make
training.
that? Could we make that a rule?
We can do that.
We probably should.
We can do that. We can do that. That's one of the things I want to look at. Our staff does that training. Tom Mulhern, our police chief, goes out on a regular basis a couple times a year and does that training, or if he's asked to do it for any group, he's more than happy to do that. So that's one of the requirements that I would like to see put into effect.
And the training is required for the owners and managers, but not every bartender. So we do, you're talking about expanding the existing training.
Okay, any questions, further comments on that? And then lastly, I'd like to mention that our village clerk and our deputy village clerk attended a meeting down in Springfield, the municipal clerk's annual meeting, and Virginia Simsky, our clerk, won an election as the Director of Municipal Clerks of Illinois for District 2. So we're very happy for her achievements along those lines, as if she doesn't have enough to do already. There are only 8 districts in the entire state of Illinois, so we're pretty proud of her achievements and making it into a position of being one of the directors in our municipal clerks division. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that is all that I have at this time. Moving right along, our village clerk.
I just want to remind the residents and everyone about the Westmont Fall Harvest Festival starting tomorrow. It will be held October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd at the Westmont Yard Indoor Sports Complex, which is just west of Cass on 63rd Street, on the south side of 63rd. There'll be live music and carnivals, and beer and wine will be served, plus great food. And the hours on October 1st are 3 to 10:30 p.m. October 2nd, which is Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. And Sunday, October 3rd, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. And the other thing going on this weekend is the Last Straw, which is put on by the Gregg House Museum. And that is Sunday, October 3rd, from 12 noon to 4 p.m. And there'll be scarecrows and kids' crafts and games and music and bake sales. So there's lots going on this weekend. See if you can attend many of the functions going on. And that's all I have tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Our village attorney, John Zemanek.
Thank you, Mayor. Emailed out to you last week was a board action request that did not make the agenda in time, and it's in front of you today. It's a request to amend and clarify the map That was part of the ordinance establishing the development moratorium in the section of town around, I think it's Warwick and Melrose. The original map drawn by Public Works was a little rough in that the boundaries were not clearly delineated, and there's also a assemblage of parcels up along Ogden Avenue for a proposed grocery store, and part of those parcels were mistakenly included. So in front of you is a revised and clarified map, and I believe by Monday staff will also have a property address list of all the properties around the perimeter of the map, so there's no question as to which properties are included or excluded. I would like to have this added to the agenda for a vote on Monday.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
I forgot to request one thing, and that is an executive session at our regular meeting regarding personnel. Sorry. Our village manager, Ron Searle.
Thank you. I'd like to add to that request discussion of pending litigation as well. And then passed out a supplemental purchase order list. There's one new purchase order on that list to the Village of Downers Grove. That's part of our consolidation effort with the Village of Downers Grove on dispatch. It has to do with our software system that we run, our HDE software system, which, as you know, they also run, and this has to do with the consolidation of those licenses and that equipment. So I'd ask that we add that to the agenda for Monday.
Ron, I saw the request from the Lions Club to solicit. Is that something that the board approves? It needs to be on an agenda, or does it just get approved by the clerk's office?
We were going to bring that up, yes. Yeah, there was a letter that was passed out for a request for solicitation for Candy Day on October 8th and 9th. And I know Trustee Seneca, you said that you had some additional details on that request.
Just that it will model last year's drive, sunrise to sunset, same streets. You know, it's their typical drive that they've done every year, that they've been a service organization, which is coming up on 75 years in Westmont as a service organization.
So we can add that to the agenda for Monday as well.
That'd be great. That would be great. Thank you.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Trustee items, Trustee Klebanow.
Just a reminder for October, being around I guess starting tomorrow, is the Fire Department Open House is Tuesday, October 5th. And I believe it's starting around 6:30-ish. And is it going to end at 8 or 8:30? 8:30. So hopefully, you know, we'll get a lot of people out there. It was attended great last year, so I'm hoping for another good one this year.
I'm sorry, did you say 6:30?
6:30 to 8:30.
Okay, thank you.
On Tuesday, October 5th. And then the silent parade will follow on Friday, October 8th, of course, again, along Chicago Ave. So if everybody can get out there, and usually it starts about when it starts getting dark. So hopefully everybody will get out there. Around 7, they start kicking off from Hinsdale, I believe, somewhere around, just around 7. So by the time they get into Westmont, it might be around 7:10, 7:15, whatever. So looking forward to that. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Emery.
Yes, Chief Trout asked me to give you a little more detail on the silent parade on Friday. It begins in Hinsdale at 7 p.m. And for those who are not familiar with it, this parade is a dedication to the firefighters and civilians who have lost their lives due to fires. The parade originating in Hinsdale, proceeding west, and terminating at Route 53 in Lisle will feature department vehicles from several surrounding villages. All vehicles will display lights only, no sirens will be sounded. In Westmont, people may assemble along Chicago Avenue near Naperville and Chicago Avenue to view the parade and pay tribute by holding a flashlight as the cortege passes at approximately 7:10 to 7:15. A brief ceremony which officially closes Fire Prevention Week will be held at Trinity Lutheran Church, 1101 Kimberly Way, which is 2 blocks south of Route 53 and Maple Avenue in Lisle at approximately 7:45. And if you need any information, you can call the non-emergency number at the fire department, or Marcia Geisler, who's the public education officer at the Downers Grove Fire Department. And the chief also reminded us about Tuesday's open house, and he said, you know, the favorite is the fireman's pole is there for the kids, and he had me make a note to let everyone know he will be doing a pole dance. So sometime between 6:30 and 8:30. So we will be sure to see that.
Thank you. Trustee Forsley.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Trustee Scott. Thank you.
Nothing tonight, sir.
Trustee Fleming.
The only thing I have is, this will be our last meeting, so I need to announce Public Works Committee meeting on the 12th at 7 p.m. at the Water Department. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Seneca.
Thank you. Just wanted to let everyone know there will not be an Economic Development Committee meeting on Wednesday, October 6th. Also wanted to congratulate the Westmont Sentinels on their homecoming victory. I guess it was a great game. I was out of town attending the Illinois Municipal League conference, so I wasn't able to go to the game, but I understand it was a great victory, so they're having a really good season. Unfortunately, it didn't make the local paper, so I would hope that everyone has heard this by now and that maybe they'll get some coverage on that next week. Also wanted to let everyone know that Mays Lake Retirement Home, Retirement Village, will be having their annual bazaar on October 9th and 10th. On the 9th, it's from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., and on the 10th, it's from 12 to 4. It's a great event, lots of good bargains, and it's a great fundraiser for them. And the last thing I had is speedy recovery to George Drenth, who is recovering from a broken hip, but he is doing well, and he is on the mend. So get well, George. They need you back at the golf course. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. First item, Alpha Motors, 301 to 312 East Ogden. Board to consider the following requests for Alpha Motors of Westmont, LLC. A special use permit request to allow the sale of used automobiles. B, a revised site plan approval. C, a waiver request to permit substandard parking stall dimensions. And D, a waiver request to permit substandard drive aisle widths. Yes.
Good evening, sir. Rebecca Michaels, attorney for Alpha Motors of Westmont. Dr. Hanna, who's the general manager, operating manager over there, couldn't make it tonight. He had an emergency and the family needs out of state, actually, so we apologize about his absence. Hopefully I can answer your questions to the best of my ability. I thought that I would start off with just giving a brief background, very brief about the company, and then go more into how we reached this point, the several meetings that we've had in front of the Economic Development Board, and then address the 4 items that are listed on the agenda. Hopefully I won't take up too much of your time, and then after I give that introduction, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. The company, Alpha Motors of Westmont, was recently formed this year, in March, actually, of 2010. We're a wholly owned subsidiary of an investment company that's based in Willowbrook. And essentially, we formed the company for the purpose of, our main priority was to operate a used vehicle dealership, but the motive or the mission, so to say, of the company is essentially to improve the public perception of used car sales in general. As you guys probably know that used cars dealerships don't exactly have a very good reputation. So in our mission, we've always tried to, through our warranty policy and our exchange program, we have a 30-day warranty policy and a 7-day no questions asked exchange program. We've had a grand opening, and we've done a lot of interaction with the public in terms of just getting our name out there and helping to promote the reputation of used car dealerships in locally and statewide, I guess. So that's the background about the company. We did apply for a special use permit pursuant to the requirements of the Village of Westmont. In the special use permit application process, we found that we were running into some difficulties in terms of the layout of the geography there and how we could best situate cars spatially and in terms of number. And with a lot of cooperation and help from the staff, we were able to reach something that, a consensus, so to speak, that we believe is good for both sides. I just wanted to, I don't know if I can use this, but just to give you an idea, to show you what we started off with, essentially. Okay. Initially, this was our initial submission. The initial submission, the staff had some concerns in terms of the amount of spots that were there. We had spots along this side, spots along this side. The fire department was concerned about the fire lanes. There was a lot of crowding over here in the corners. When we took over the lot as well, there was an opening here. So there was an entrance and exit into Ogden Avenue. And we personally took the initiative on that. We thought that that was very unsafe. And currently, we have cars blocking this spot right here. We've opened up this exit way to Black Hawk Drive to sort of promote the flow of traffic from Ogden through the lot and out of Black Hawk, or vice versa, which we thought has helped. The staff agreed with us, and actually in their recommendations have asked us to apply for an IDOT permit to have this permanently closed off, which we've agreed to do and intend to do. After we've submitted this, the staff made these recommendations. As you can see here, they wanted us to cancel these spots here to maintain them as a buffer, and also to clean up the lots back here. These lots are behind the building and are visually obstructed from view when you're driving on Ogden. So in an effort to sort of work with us, due to the fact that the layout is kind of cramped, and I mean currently we're selling about 100 cars a month, and so in an effort to try to promote our business, the staff has agreed to allow us to include some stalls back here that are, or their suggestion was that we include some stalls back there and ask for the waiver to request that the stall dimensions be substandard while removing these spots up here. So ultimately, what we did was we created this site plan, which is an exact replica of the previous site plan with the staff recommendations, but just in cleaner format. Pursuant to their recommendation, we've also added arrows to show the flow of traffic, and we intend to put up signage to that effect as well. This is the current site plan that we're asking the special use permit application to be amended with this site plan, as opposed to the one that we originally submitted that wasn't in compliance with the staff recommendations. And I hope that's pretty much the explanation with respect to C and D on the agenda as well, to request that the substandard parking stall dimensions in the back so that we could fit more cars back there, and the drive aisle widths as well. I guess I'll open up to questions at this point. We're just essentially requesting that the special use permit be issued based on the long road that we've come in getting to this point.
Fred, before we get any comments from anyone, could you kind of give us your interpretation of this request?
Yes, Your Honor. Staff found historical evidence of several special use permits that predated the advent of Alpha Motors occupancy of this particular location. And we discussed this at great length with the village attorney, and felt the best thing to do was to indicate that they should come through the special use process, because it had been some time since an auto dealership had occupied the location. There was an interruption of time there. We felt that they should come back through the approval process, and we did give them temporary permission to operate there, subject to village board ultimate approval on this. If the board does not approve it, of course, they traveled at their own risk, if you will. We've been very pleased to work with this organization. We found them to be quite cooperative. They have accepted an invitation by the Westmont Auto Mile Consortium to join that group, and they are a fully paid-up dues-paying member. They have joined the Westmont Chamber of Commerce. They've complied with all of the recommendations that staff had with regard to parking layout, to remove some constriction within the internal portions of the lot, and to make the site plan a lot cleaner and more safe, allowing ingress and egress in a more safe manner and allowing better access for emergency vehicles. We're very pleased with the cooperation that they've displayed with us, and we would recommend approval of these requests.
The ramps that were part of the discussion, was that a problem?
Is the question addressed to me?
Either one.
Originally, in the original application for special use permit, we understood that that would be required. We would be required to ask for a variance on that issue. Throughout the process, we learned that it would be considered a variance. We're asking that it be granted as part of the special use permit. We know that it's against staff. Staff has recommended that we not have them, but we're asking in light of the fact that we be grandfathered in due to the fact that the previous owner had them. They're actually quite costly. We purchased them pursuant to the closing on the property as part of the bill of sale, and each of those ramps amount to probably about $2,000 each. I think we have 14 of them. We're not using all of them. I think only 6 or 7 are in use right now. But we're respectfully requesting that we be allowed to use them and maintain them on the property, especially in light of the fact that the property, like topographically, the property sort of it's below Ogden Avenue. When you're driving on Ogden Avenue, the lot sits a little bit below geographically, and so when you put the ramps on the near Ogden Avenue, in my opinion, they don't really cause a huge. I mean, I'm assuming the concern of the board is that it would cause a distraction to drivers. The way that they're situated is at ground level, essentially, because of the way the topography of the land is. But again,
and she's talking about the elevated racks. Since I've been the village going back to '97, every single special use has made it a condition that elevated racks are not permitted. Yeah. And there's been Lexus and BMW and Mercedes and everyone else who's either obtained special uses or gone through expansions and revised site plans, and that has been a condition of every single ordinance. So certainly you have the right not to require that if you think special unique conditions apply to this applicant, but historically you've not allowed them. It's not for public safety reasons. It's more that you've tried to preserve a certain high aesthetic for the auto dealers. And between prohibiting streamers, balloons, loudspeakers, et cetera, racks were part of the restriction.
I guess it's the opinion of staff that they look kind of cheesy.
Aren't there some with racks on Ogden?
I noticed one for Toyota, and I need to check their special use permit to see if that was prohibited, and if so, it's just a matter of staff going out there and saying it's a violation of their ordinance, or they can get fined daily.
And that's actually the former owner was the Lot B of Toyota. The former owner of this property, it was Toyota, Bob Orman's Toyota, it's Lot B. So the racks we bought them from them.
That was probably the overflow that
the overflow
he did.
That was their used car lot.
It was their used car lot, yes.
Yeah, I don't remember when Toyota came in whether racks were thought of back then, but this doesn't. I mean, ever since it was thought of, we've always been negative on any type of racks, and I do have a feeling that they're sneaking them in because they're not being policed. But
did the last dealer have them? Before, or the one that was before Bob Orman?
Barbara Motors.
I believe they did. Yes. I think they did.
And then I think before that, it was a used lot for a number of years. And then it goes back into the 70s. I believe there was another auto dealership there that from
Dusko's had it for a while.
Yeah. It is low. It is a low property when you're driving down Ogden. It's sort of slanted down.
It has a very unique perspective on the use of that. If I understand the reasoning for racks not being allowed and others and that, but I mean this particular parcel, I would have to go back to the planning and zoning days and say, this is a hardship
I'd have to look at
upon,
it,
I mean,
definitely.
you know, this is a hardship upon them, because if they would have to regrade that entire lot to make it work, I think it would be it wouldn't be worth opening a dealership there.
No, I don't think so. I think they can live without wrecks. The other dealerships will try to find a hardship saying that all their vehicles interfere with the one they're trying to showcase, and they want a rack to stand that one above the vehicles that are all frontage out there, because they all have all those cars jammed up front. So they're always going to find some excuse for a hardship, and I don't believe it. If we're going to stay with racks, I don't believe in, you're either going to give them to them all, or you don't give them to anybody.
Well, Lexus put in shrubbery and palm trees on Ogden Avenue and almost kind of hides their place. So it kind of, would they want racks then lifted up above it so they can be seen better? You would assume that most people would want their cars seen, but they're trying to hide them, I think, to some extent, for the beautification of the property.
Actually, the low part, I think, is even more of an advantage, because nothing is blocking it. They can actually look down as they drive by and see the cars, where the ones we're forcing all the landscaping in front of, that is literally blocking them. So I don't consider that a hardship.
Not to add another challenge, but is it possible, and I would defer to the police and the safety experts, to make a no left turn onto Ogden at this point here? Because if they come out to the light, and the only reason, and one reason I say that is, coming out of Midas one time, I did get hit. We made a left turn, somebody's come off the light, and there was an accident because it was so close to the light and didn't see each other.
Taking that another step farther, how about only a right turn only coming out on the west end so they don't go down Blackhawk into the residential area? Kind of like we did with Porsche.
Right, and as a matter of fact, that's a condition in the ordinance, and I was gonna ask staff, I can't recall, I know it's in here, I can't recall if we discussed it at planning and zoning and discussed it with the applicant. We did discuss prohibiting test driving in the residential area.
We didn't, that was never brought up with us. However, I doubt that my client would have an objection to that. That doesn't really affect us if we require clients to make a right turn only there. So I would say that we wouldn't object to that if that would be a requirement of the special use permit.
The only concern with not allowing left turns on Ogden, as I see it from the applicant's standpoint, is you'd be forcing customers to drive through where they have their inventory. It's kind of tight in there, and, you know.
And that's why I said I would leave it up to the experts.
That's not something that we looked at. We were, I guess, very appreciative, trustee, of the fact that they were willing to close off that other one to make it a safer ingress egress. So they've kind of gone part way with us on that, and we feel that was a good gesture on their part.
I would like to see right turn only on Blackhawk, though, because of the residential area there. I think that's a good suggestion, and we've done that with Porsche. We've required them to do it.
That'd just be a simple sign that says no left turn.
Sure.
Or right turn only?
Potato,
Or both.
tomato.
The way they read them, we probably need them both.
Or we could just put John's phone number.
For turning instructions, please call John Zemanek.
Great idea.
Actually, they'll have the advantage, they'll come out onto Blackhawk by Ogden, and they should be able to go north and go into the industrial area to do a test drive without disturbing any residential. So that would probably be, what we're trying to do is keep them in a, and they've got the advantage of the light.
Go through great detail.
I want to go back and check that intersection. I thought the left turn at the light, there's no pork chop or medium interfering if they happen to turn left to come into the dealership. So they're already off the road from the people continuing west, so it's just a matter of them being a little careful at the light. Yeah, as long as it's like that, I don't think I'd mind at all them turning left off of Ogden into there. And if they have a problem, then they definitely will need a new car.
Going back to the racking issue, the only thing that I would like to see before Monday's meeting is if we could do the research and find out what Westmont Toyota has on their property, and if there is anything permitting them to use them, because if there is, then we have a whole different thing going here.
I sent an email to myself last night to do that today, and I ran out of time to do it, so I'll make sure by Monday
So procedurally, can we hold that issue in abeyance while we still proceed with the issue of the special use permit, or would that work?
Yeah, would you like that set out as a separate voting item?
Yeah.
That's fine.
All right,
Yep.
so you'll get
Yes.
your vote either way
Okay.
on Monday, and they'll
Okay.
vote separately whether that's a
That's what
condition
we
or not.
asked for, and then just for the record, so that I could state that, depending on the research of the board, what comes up, then we would just request that if the previous owner was allowed to have them pursuant to a special use permit, that we be grandfathered in. We're asking for that, obviously, but.
I will say this, the prior special use permits for your client's property, don't mention it one way or the other.
Okay.
Historically, I don't know if staff knows whether they were used or not.
Okay.
What I was going to check is whether Oak Brook Toyota down the street, who I know as of recently did have one or two racks on their property, whether they're prohibited by ordinance or whether they predate the time that the board started implementing that as a condition.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, if they predate it, would that mean it goes with the land?
Yeah, it would basically be, there was no restriction on their special use, so nothing would stop them from using a rack unless there's some other ordinance that applies, and to my knowledge, there isn't. I guess if they put them in a line of sight triangle or something.
I mean, that,
Should be in there, because I remember one of the dealers came in here, and in the course of, they were doing their construction plan, and we talked about it, and they said they sold their racks to Toyota, and they said, and now they're using them. So it was, after the fact of us saying you can't use them, that somebody bought them and started using them. So because I remember the gentleman who was here with the construction was a little ticked that somebody was using the racks that they had to sell.
I think the racks have been used in that particular lot for quite a while. I really do. I think it was Barber Motors that was there prior to this, those racks were there.
Either way, just from a legal standpoint, that goes back a ways. The auto use stopped. There comes a time when you can say a special use doesn't run with the land forever, and you can require a new special use for a new similar.
Well, then,
Okay,
we need to also go back then and find out why we didn't. And I mean, I know this is one of those that it's in past tense, but I mean, if we allowed those racks to stay there, even with that dealership, we got a little bit of a problem here. It's kind of some murky water, so to speak.
Fred, do you know when the last special use was granted for the property at issue?
I believe it goes back to like 1985 or something like that.
But then that brings up the question that the two previous owners immediately before us, without any interruption, were both used car dealerships. So were they operating without a special use permit?
That's true, but then there was an extensive period of vacancy, and I think that's what.
Prior to that?
No,
No,
after that.
following the use by the auto dealerships. Then there was a long period of vacancy before your arrival on the site.
But we purchased the property on February 1st,
Right.
and they moved out March 31st. So they moved out even after the purchase of the property.
Okay.
We
but
rented back
pri-
to them 1 month.
Yeah,
I don't think they were selling, though. I
Prior
think they
to
were
that
just there.
special, that auto dealership, there was an extended period of vacancy in between that one and another one.
Oh, okay.
So
Well,
there-
I just
there have
wanted to
been-
make it clear that, like, between us and the immediate previous owner, there was continuity in
Okay.
used car sales.
One way or the other, staff's going to have to research it with the village attorney to come up with an answer
Okay.
for us by Monday.
Okay.
However, I would like to say that we try to maintain an upscale look to our dealers, and they've spent
understandable.
hundreds of thousands of dollars to maintain that look. So whatever we can do to help maintain that appeal along Ogden Avenue, we certainly like to do. And we're often criticized by people for spending a lot of money on the car dealerships, but we really don't spend that much money. Usually when there are any improvements that need to be made, they pay for it all themselves. And all those dealers have undergone or in the process of undergoing tremendous expense to expand their dealerships and put up and construct new buildings. So for whatever that's worth,
No, it's
the more
worth a lot.
appealing that you make your lot and your building, the more successful Alpha Motors will be, in my opinion.
Thank you. And we do appreciate the need for aesthetic. That's why we definitely encourage all of you to come by and see the tremendous changes we've made to the building, interior and exterior. I happen to think that it's a huge improvement.
Speaking of the interior then, on the building itself, are you going to be doing anything, washing vehicles? Is there anything going on to the vehicles, maintenance?
On the property, no. On
Okay.
this property, no.
So the building's going to be used for what, just?
Sales.
Okay,
Strictly
just
sales.
office sales, washrooms, things like that for the people looking?
Yes.
Okay, but there's no detailing, no car work being done on
Absolutely.
site?
The way that there's no room for that. There's no facility for that.
How is that handled then when mechanical?
We outsource that. So if, for example, there's detailing that needs to be done for a car that's being sold, we send it out to a third party to do that.
I believe the areas trustee that used to be for interior automobile repair work have been refinished with like office type?
Yes, we were required to do that with the building permit. The interior that used to be used as a garage, essentially, we no longer, there was a garage door there. We filled that in with concrete blocks. It's a wall now with windows, and that's all office space in there.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
So both those items will be
Thank you.
before us on Monday for discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, Quail Ridge Office Center, 640 Pasquinelli Drive. Board to consider a solid masonry waiver request from Quail Ridge Office Center to permit the construction of a wooden gazebo.
Good evening. My name is Michael Maloney. I'm a landscape architect with the Kenneth Company, and I'm representing the owners of the Quail Ridge Office Center. Quail Ridge, if you're not familiar, is accessed from Pasquinelli Drive. It's a business complex of many different businesses within the site. I believe everyone has drawings and photographs of the proposed changes. What we're proposing to do is put a wooden gazebo on the property, which we're requesting a waiver of the solid masonry requirements. The property's bordered between, the property's located between Pasquinelli and Route 83, just south of 35th Street. Visually, the only people that would have any visual access to this property are people who reside, their businesses reside within the property boundaries, with the exception possibly of people driving by on 35th Street. As you can see from the entire site plan, this gazebo is very small in comparison to the entire property. There are no residential or commercial properties which would have any view of this structure, with the exception of people that are already within the property boundaries. In addition to the gazebo, there's a handicap accessible walkway that would access the gazebo, as well as a small patio, a small concrete patio. There's some details there in terms of the construction of the sidewalk and the details for the footing. And other than that, this is the type of structure you'd often see in a park or in a residential situation. They're often used in smaller park settings, and it's visually, I think, quite attractive. It's, for the most part, a prefab wooden structure. And I just thought I'd entertain any questions if anyone had any.
It's pretty.
Would be used?
Oh, yes. Yeah, there's, it was actually some of the people that are currently renting or occupying space within the property boundaries have requested some additional outside patio and, sort of luncheon, the primary use would probably be luncheons or an ability for people to have lunch or possibly an after work or later in the day sort of picnic-like event for their employees. It is within the public boundaries of the complex, so essentially it would be accessible from anyone within the complex. And I think there's a visual component to it on a year-round basis where it is sort of a quaint structure, and even though it might not be actively used in a passive sense, there's visually it's somewhat of, I think, of an attractive part of the landscape. There'd be some additional landscaping going on around the structure just to sort of work it in a little better with the existing landscape. It was primarily one of the renters, the Recycle Energy Company that's there, that sort of approached the landlord and requested this structure be installed.
What is the proximity to the buildings where the gazebo is going to be located?
It's actually across the sidewalk from, it's across the existing walkway from the building. I could show a drawing. So it's between the existing walk entrance to the building and the retention pond that's located on the property. This drawing here shows the proposed gazebo, which is here, and this line right here is the retention pond. This is a setback line for building from the retention pond, so it's set back from the boundary of the retention pond, and this here is the entrance, the two entrances to this particular unit from the parking lot.
The only thing that I would say from a safety standpoint, I don't have a problem with it, but from a fire safety scenario, my suggestion would be possibly have the contractor, they make a product that could be sprayed on it or possibly brushed on it, which is a fire retardant, somewhat protectant. So just kind of cover your bases a little bit.
I think that's a great idea. It may actually come with that treatment already, but if not, we would be more than willing to accommodate that request.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing no further questions, thank you for coming in. That'll be on our agenda for a vote on Monday evening.
Very good. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Lacey and Associates, Van Buren Enterprises, 2 West Ogden. Board to consider special use permit request by Lacey and Associates, Van Buren Enterprises, to allow an automobile repair shop at 2 West Ogden Avenue.
Good evening, Mike Lacey on behalf of the property owner. The property in question has historically been used as a gas station, gas or car repair facility since about 1944. Up until the underground storage tanks were removed this past May. The operator of the facility subsequently bought the property in the following July. The property was operated in compliance with the applicable zoning regulations at the time the tanks were removed, but the ability to operate as a car service facility was ancillary to the use of the property as a gasoline station. Consequently, the village is deemed necessary for the owner to come in and ask for a special use permit to operate solely as a car repair facility. Since he's bought the property, the owner has paved, restriped the driveway, has completely cleaned, painted inside and out the buildings, and has screened the property. Now, one might notice, if you've gone by there, that it looks like it's only screened on 3 sides in the back where the cars awaiting service are. And the reason for that is to do the asphalting. This is a rolling gate. It's not a gate that opens out. They had to take it down. Unfortunately, the people that took it down are ill-equipped to put it back. Additionally, when they asphalted it, this thing runs on like a track, and they asphalted over the track. So someone has been retained to repair the situation, and a rolling gate will be reinstalled by the middle of this month, which will completely enclose the back of the facility where cars awaiting service will be parked during the evening. All other recommendations of the village are the property is currently being operated in compliance with those recommendations. The use there is consistent with other uses or similar uses along Ogden Avenue, and we would ask that the special use permit be granted.
received an interesting comment from a resident that they used to purchase their gasoline there for many, many years. And they were shocked when the name Shell disappeared. Were they, Shell no longer interested in selling, they were no longer interested in selling gasoline? Actually at that site, or how did that all come about?
Yes, sir. Well, Shell actually no longer in this market owns the real estate. They used to own a lot of their gas stations, and they would lease them to these dealers who had to sell their products. Okay. Shell has now sold off all these units to independent distributors, and the distributors in turn either flip them or lease them to operators, and they distribute the gasoline they buy from Shell. In this particular instance, a third party actually made an offer on the property, and the operator who had built a business there was faced with the prospect of either buying the property under the terms given him without negotiation or leaving the facility. And he bought the property with the express condition that the tanks be removed. And the reason Shell demanded the tanks be removed is that they didn't want any trailing environmental liabilities. Shell pulled the tanks at their expense, and Shell is responsible for obtaining the NFR for the property. And that is why the tanks were removed in May, and the station didn't close. The current operator didn't buy it until July, is that once Shell took possession back, they removed the underground storage tanks. It did most of the environmental work. I believe the only, and I haven't seen the final report, but my understanding is the only thing left on the environmental end is really paperwork. The property has had all active remediation done, and he's put the asphalt back, so that would be the asphalt cap required by the IEPA. So it's getting the work done, finally approved, and the letter issued by the state saying we're done with the environmental work.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions?
I saw a tow truck there. Are they towing also the vehicles that need repair?
The tow trucks are towed there, and the tow trucks, if you were to go by there tonight, after hours are parked behind the facility and will be parked in that screened-in area.
Okay. When I drove by, it was outside the screen, which didn't bother me. I was just curious if that was owned by the company so they can do their own towing when they need to bring a car in.
Actually, he doesn't own the trucks. Okay. He works in conjunction with the tow truck operator. Gotcha. That way he doesn't have to buy his own truck or maintain it.
Okay. I didn't know he just happened to have it already.
Yeah, I just to answer your question, he has it there so he doesn't have to buy his own. Gotcha. And at night they are parked behind the screening and the gate is locked.
Okay. Will there be any vehicles parked out in the new paved area where the tanks used to be and stuff? It's very, very large. It looks like a huge, large parking lot out there.
Yes, ma'am. No, there are no plans to use the front. The canopy remains, but the canopy remained for two primary issues. One is now that it's getting dark, you turn the canopy on and he looks open from 5 to 7 o'clock. The other one is a safety issue. It can get pretty dark up by the building with just the interior lights or the perimeter lights, so the canopy keeps the place illuminated and safe looking. Okay. In addition, it provides a modicum of protection from the weather, given it rain or snow. But no, the cars waiting for service will be parked back in the screened area at all times. The only cars you will see parked in front of the building will be those people who are picking up their cars or the employees.
I have to say, for me, I don't believe that's the highest and best use for that corner. But the building does look nice. It's been improved. I certainly wouldn't want to put anyone out of business in these economic times. Would I rather see something else there? Absolutely. Maybe even a gas station. My request would be that we don't see cars parked in the front with sudden for sale signs on them, as sometimes you see in car repair places, and that the property
in the ordinance.
Oh, good, thank you. Or lawnmowers or, things like that, because I've seen that along Ogden Avenue at other car repair places. Also, that the property be maintained and kept very, very clean and attractive. It's easy to see some repair shops kind of go south, so that would be my main concern.
Thank you.
I'd like to see a site plan because, I go by there and all of that, but I think I'd like to see what it's going to look like at the end of the day, where the screening is going to be permanently as proposed, how high, type of screening, you know, is it going to be a cyclone fence with those dumb slats in it, or, well, you can tell what I think about those. So I understand, you know, that you've gone to a lot of work in putting this together, but I'm one of those people, I need to see what it's going to look like.
Okay, we can do that.
Yeah, that would be good to see. I agree.
So, I don't know, I doubt you can get us something that we could look at and vote by Monday.
We have a plan, but if you're looking for heights of the fence and those type of dimensions, I don't think that is possible.
Well, usually, as far as I'm concerned, I like to see the artist's rendering of what we're going to see when it's all done at the end of the day, and what, you know, because they can, a lot of people now are doing, you know, with Photoshop, or they're using, you know, graphic software, so that we can get an idea of what it's going to look like from that corner when people drive by it.
We can do that.
Okay.
Has the pavement been striped for parking spaces out front?
Yes, ma'am, it has.
It has been already?
And as a condition to operate pending the board's approval, we were required to get our submission in by August 6th. And we did the best we could in the time allotted, but if you need an artist rendering, we're more than happy to do so.
Yeah, because yeah, I'd like to see that, please.
What type of signage are you planning on putting up on this property?
Nothing too big. Like I said, we're on a short time frame, but we do not anticipate asking for a variance or any exception to the existing ordinances.
So nothing neon or?
Pardon me?
No neon signs?
Nothing that's not permitted already in the
Okay,
statute.
so it'll be right to the book, whatever's allowed?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
I mean, I'll have to echo Trustee Seneca's comments too. I'm not real pleased with the use of this property, but I guess I understand the reasoning for it. I honestly think that something else could have better been planned to put on that location, even possibly by the individual that bought the property. Maybe look around a little bit, because I don't know how long car repair shop's going to last, honestly. There's a lot of them.
My only response to that, sir, is he knew when he bought it, he wouldn't have the gasoline station, and he sees the P&Ls, he knows what it costs to buy it and repair it, and he feels he's got a very good shot to maintain an ongoing business, and he's been there for a few years, and he's got a lot of time and money invested in it, and he would appreciate the opportunity to develop that business.
Well, I hope he does well. I wish him the best.
Thank you, sir.
I'd like to point out that there are special conditions in the ordinance approving the special use if you are inclined to approve it. They're consistent with the staff write-up to the Planning and Zoning Commission, nothing that wasn't discussed.
Yes, sir.
One of the things that was discussed at Planning and Zoning was some sort of sunset clause on this use based on the fact that there were some comments that it wasn't the highest and best use. Rather than impose a term of years, what's suggested is if the use is abandoned for a period of 6 months or more, or if there is a transfer of ownership of the property, a new special use would be required for that use.
Yes, sir.
Unfortunately, there's little, if any, green space in this property, so I assume there's no planned landscaping.
Other than to approve the corner, there is a large mature tree along Cass. Along Ogden, there's not a lot of green space, but there is on the corner a built-up area with the landscaping ties. There's bushes in there, and we had discussed with Ms. Malik that we would address improving the landscape on the corner. And there is a small green space along Ogden Avenue that will be addressed in the spring with either smaller bushes or flowers.
And are we to still assume it will be called Gus's Auto Repair? What is it?
That is the name, yeah.
And the hours of operation will still be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.? Is that 6 days a week?
Yes, ma'am.
And tune-ups, brakes, exhaust, et cetera, no painting on site?
No painting, no body work, no heavy mechanics. There'll be no engine changing
Okay.
there or anything of that nature.
Okay. Great, thank you.
One of the things I noticed on the site plan is it looks like it might possibly have 2 driveways onto Cass and 2 onto Ogden. And I was wondering if we could limit a driveway on each, since obviously the cars aren't going to be coming and going like they do, filling up with gas. And maybe even just a temporary thing by putting planters so they can't come through certain driveways. That would also bring a nice look to the corner. But if there was a way of possibly blocking maybe the 2 driveways that are right there smack on that corner, 1 on each side, and force them to come in at the second driveway, the north end of Cass, or the west end of Ogden. And then, like I said, maybe just like a temporary, these planter things, these nice concrete planters that would keep people from coming in the other 2 driveways. We're not asking him to, do any major work, but he could throw some nice stuff on the planters, colorful stuff, make his business. It would also hide some stuff.
I don't believe we would have an objection to that at all.
I was just thinking for safety. The thing that worried me was how they would come in. It almost looks like it was a way of forcing cars only coming south to come in this exit, but I'm sure the people coming in from going north on Cass would be better off coming in from Ogden anyway. So it just, the least entries possible is what I'd like to see. And if you just put temporaries there, I don't think you'd have to have any permission, would you, from county or anything?
So
I believe so.
Are you thinking the Ogden exit entrance that would be the farthest east, and then Cass the south, those would be the ones that would be closed?
Yeah, the 2 that are the closest to the corner.
Yeah, that makes, I think that makes good sense.
Can we put that up on the screen so people can see?
Yeah. Do you have it there?
Get your site plan there? Does that make sense?
Whoops.
They stop the cut-throughs,
I'm
too.
going to put that on the screen there, and they'll plug it in.
Especially in rush hour. Yeah, I think that makes good sense.
So you're looking at which?
Now, am I right, or you're looking at these 2, right?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Right, because they'll still have that one there and this one over here. And then just like planters, so it's just temporary for a while and see how the people go. Safety issue.
Good idea.
And it would look nice.
Reasoning, yeah.
Yeah, because they're going in and out with usually appointments, for a car repair. It's not like it's,
Plenty of room for the tow
unsolicited
truck to bring
traffic.
vehicles, tow the vehicles in, but it's just a safety thing. I never did like those sharp corners.
So close to the light,
Yeah,
to Mark's point.
makes sense.
And if they don't object to that, I would appreciate that.
I don't believe there'd be any objection at all.
And if I understood you correctly, then this section here is where the cars would be finished. The ones in the front here, that's where the cars would be.
That might be
Actually, it'd be the ones in the back. That's employee. It's the one furthest in the back, all the way, there you go. Yes, sir.
Those would be waiting to get worked on.
Waiting to work done,
But
yes,
when they're
sir.
finished working on them,
We could park them
will they
someplace up.
pull them up front? Is that, or is this all going to be employee?
Well, it'd be employees or cars that had to be picked up.
Have to
At
be
the
picked
end
up.
of the night, there should be no cars in front.
Okay.
That line there would be where that rolling fence I was talking to you about, that rolling gate, and that will be closed, and the finished cars will be back there. Or, I'm sorry, the waiting cars will be back there.
And if I recall, I believe the fence is pretty much the same as we have on the Public Works on the corner. That type of fencing, if I recall, with the slats in there that I hate. But we put it on, so, yeah. But they will be at least privacy in that area. Yeah, but I don't think even if they put the planters there, that could be a nice place for them to put the cars that are finished, so the people can see their car as they come up to get it, and then they go inside and take care of their pay, and then come out and get the car. Fine.
Okay, got it.
I believe this is yours.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if they put planters there, does that mean that in no time they'll have to completely block it off and put it back green space, or?
My understanding is if it is temporary planters that are safe in the opinion of the Public Works Department, that's okay, and then they don't have to apply to IDOT or DuPage DOT for permanent closure.
If I may make a suggestion, I'm sure we're fine with the temporary planners, but I think for everyone's benefit, if the gentleman is correct and the repair day doesn't make it, there's going to be a different use there. A different user may want a different configuration for driveways, and once IDOT takes them, they don't give them back real easy. At least that's been my experience. So if everyone's all right with the planners, we would be happy to do so.
We have some nice big planters that we have downtown that should stop a car.
Would certainly green up the site a little bit.
It would look nice.
Right.
Okay, any other questions?
They could even put an evergreen in one if they wanted. So for Christmas, plant a Christmas tree there and put lights on it. We've got them going there.
Okay, if there are no further questions, this will be on our agenda for Monday evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in. Next item, funeral home, 39 North Cass. Board to consider development permit request for a funeral home at 39 North Cass.
Sure. Good evening. I'm Roberta Dwyer, and my sister Judy Javier, sitting over there, and I own the building at 39 North Cass. Let me give you just a bit of background to put it in perspective. It was formerly Westmont Funeral Chapel. As far as we can tell, that's been a funeral home since the 1930s. Our uncle Edward Schubert bought the home in 1951. So this has been a business, a funeral business in our family for quite some time. It was family owned and operated to the mid-90s, at which time we leased the funeral home to Willard White, and I think some of you might be familiar with Will. We leased it to Will until March of this past year, at which time he took retirement, was unable to continue operating the funeral home. So we were very fortunate to, number one, make the decision that we wanted to, my sister and I wanted to continue to stay in the family funeral business, but at the same time bring in a new funeral director who would be able to continue on with the business. Matthew Conboy is with us tonight. Matthew is one of two funeral directors that we were very fortunate to have stay with us. Matthew owns Conboy Funeral Home in Westchester, so he has a wealth of experience. And Tony Capetta has Gerhardt Funeral Home in Lamont, so he also has experience. When I say we were very fortunate last March to have Tony with us to continue the funeral business, I say that because Tony had worked hand in hand with Will Wright for the past 6 years. In fact, those of you who know Will know that he was quite ill for a long time. Tony did all his work. So when Will retired, Tony really continued the funeral business. Matt joined him with the understanding that the two gentlemen would continue running it, turn it into what they're calling West Suburban Funeral Home, and cremation services at that site. Now, because the funeral home had fallen into disarray, Judy and I took the opportunity to invest a lot of time and a lot of money this past summer in not only bringing it up to code, but really trying to make it a very attractive, very upscale home on Cass Avenue. You're very familiar with Cass Avenue, and there's a lot of buildings around us that are in a lot of need, but we wanted to make sure that we were head and shoulders, that we were adding value to the community. Knowing we had these two gentlemen with us that would continue on with the funeral business, we felt that we were in a good position to add business to the community and recapture a lot of clients that may have gone to other areas in the past few years. We do not need a special use permit. We have never gone out of business. Judy and I and our family have been in the business since 1951. And as I said, with Tony Capetta continuing on with the funeral services as he's done at that location for the last 6 years, we felt that the cosmetic changes we made and with the addition of Mr. Conboy coming in, that would help us tremendously. We are to the point now where I have signed a contract for the alarm system to be put in. I've left architectural prints down in Mr. Kimball's office to do fencing on the roof in the back of the building. And we're really hoping now at this point in time to get a temporary permit so the gentleman can officially start in business. But I want to introduce you to Mr. Conboy at this point, and he'll answer any technical questions you have, and I'll certainly stay up here also if there's any information you need. I think when we're officially open, you'll be very pleased if you want to come on by and take a look at what we're doing. I know my Uncle Ed from 1951 would be pretty proud of the place if he could see it now. Matt?
Just want to introduce myself. My name is Matthew Conboy, and I am part of the Conboy family who has been in business, the funeral business in Chicagoland since 1885. This summer we had 125th anniversary at our funeral home in Westchester. So we are western suburb neighbors as well. I took the opportunity to come to Westmont. I've known Will since I've been pretty much in diapers. He was an embalmer of mine, or I should say my father's, when we had another location as well. And I know Will always wanted a place, and I know my father helped him get in touch with Roberta and finding a place out here. So he wanted to always be a funeral home owner, and there he was. So I kind of find it to be an honor to come in and kind of take over where Will left off. I know he was ill and wasn't the most opportune place to be as far as aesthetically pleasing. And I know Roberta's done a fantastic job of painting the building, getting the inside to where it should be. I know it was, I walked in, the smell inside, the look, the everything, I just kind of gaffed to say, I don't know how he's running a funeral here. It's just something for me, it is a service industry. And that's something that I've always been taught and want to continue it that way. So are there any questions that anybody has for our building?
The building looks really very nice, very much improved. Even when you walk by the window and you can see inside, it looks very nice. You've done a nice job on the painting and the black trim. Everything looks very good. I just have a question about the name, because I thought I heard you say West Suburban Funeral and Crematorium. You're not doing that on site, right? You're not going to do
Correct.
cremations on site?
Cemeteries.
So
no, it's not cemeteries.
Well, some of the cemeteries are crematories.
Very few of them.
Yeah, but I know
very
some
few
of them are.
Yes, you are correct.
So I guess I have a question for staff. How will the sign have to read?
Well, we would like the sign to read West Suburban Funeral Home and Cremation Services. And it's not going to say cremation or crematorium on site, because that's not what we're asking for. In regards to the funeral industry, our end result is burial in a funeral, and that's done at a cemetery. That's not done at the funeral home. We are going to have a service at the funeral home before we go to either a church or a funeral home. With cremation, we're pushing the same thing, which is a service at the funeral home, then going to a church, and then the end result, instead of a cemetery, would be a cremation. So that's why we're asking that cremation be put onto the sign to say, we offer cremation services at our funeral home. I don't know if anybody realizes, but the state of Illinois is about 45% cremation rate, which means if I am not able to advertise to that, I'm now not advertising to 45% of our clientele.
I understand that, but don't we have something on, don't we have our, we can't, unless it's being, we can't advertise a service that's not being provided on site.
Correct.
Isn't that, I mean, that's the way our ordinance reads.
That's correct.
So I mean, wouldn't that require some sort of a special use or variance or special permission, or?
You've kind of zeroed in on a discussion that's taking place now between the staff and the petitioner. And we've involved the village attorney in this discussion. The question is, you can't advertise on a sign services that are not available at that particular location. The petitioner contends that cremation services refer to the ceremony that equates to a funeral that's held after a cremation takes place. Staff believes that it's a much more lay view of it. We don't believe that, we believe cremation services are the act of cremating a body, and that a funeral service takes place before after a cremation is done. So
That's what I thought. I had to ask the question.
village attorney the other day when we received a letter from Mr. Capetta. John, I don't know if you've had a chance to review that.
You know, no, and I got follow-up correspondence from you that showed that some other funeral homes do advertise cremation services, apparently in the vein that you're speaking of. I also agree that it's somewhat confusing because the layman doesn't necessarily know what that means. The thought is, my gosh, this is a crematorium.
That's what I thought.
So, you know, legally I don't have an answer. I think it's a judgment call by staff. This is a development permit within the downtown, which has been established by state statute as a development and redevelopment district. So the village has the right to look at things like not only what's the underlying use, does it promote the redevelopment goals of the village, but what are the aesthetics of the use? What is the signage of the use? And the village has restricted signage for other businesses, has looked at the lighting, has looked at certain development development guidelines. So I think it's within the board's discretion to limit signage.
I think having had an uncle who was a funeral director and several of my friends are funeral directors, I still, when I see cremation services, I think you're offering, I always take it that you're offering the service of picking up a body and taking it to a crematorium. That is the service of a cremation, that you will get it accomplished. You're not a crematorium, but you'll get it accomplished. And that when people, as like you say, 45% of the people in the state are not confused about what they want or what they're doing, is that if they want a funeral, they have a funeral, and they have a funeral wherever they want it, at a funeral parlor. And sometimes they have a wake, and that body is cremated rather than buried. And sometimes it's cremated first, and they have a memorial service. So I know that I agree that there is confusion when you say funeral and cremation services. If you're a funeral parlor and somebody wants a funeral, regardless of what they're doing with the body, they will come to you. And it's actually, from my standpoint, funeral and memorial services. Because if somebody wants to be cremated, you don't get invited or ask what the arrangements are for the cremation service. You go to the memorial service, because there's usually not a body. There may be an urn, but there may be nothing. So I don't like the language cremation services. I think it's confusing, and I think it's people will be looking for a smokestack. I don't know how other, than to bluntly put it.
Can I ask you, at your location on Cermak Road in Westchester, or is it on?
On 22nd Street.
22nd Street, right. Do you offer that service there?
Yes, we do.
And do you have signage for that there?
We are in the process of changing it to put Westchester Funeral Home and Cremation Services on the sign as well.
Okay.
Because it is a growing population. And I'm going to explain why. They weren't expecting, being researchers and people that are doing tests on this, they weren't expecting cremation rates to be anywhere near this level until about 2030. But our economic downturn has pushed cremation to the forefront, because a direct cremation, being a funeral director picking up a body, nursing home, house, or hospital, and cremating it, can be less expensive. So it's pushed that to the forefront to say, I don't have the money to pay for a traditional service, so I would like some sort of a cremation. Most people, when they come in, do not realize that you can have a traditional service, being a body present in the funeral home with viewers and gatherers and friends to pay last respects. Most people don't understand it when they walk in, and I say, well, what type of cremation? Do you want a service with that being a funeral or a visitation? And they look at me and say, I never knew you could do that. So I do agree it is confusing, but I can't come to your house and knock on the door and say, can I sit down with you and talk about funerals? Because you're going to slam that door right in my face and go, it's still a taboo word, funeral, cremation. Most people don't, on a friendly visit, want to come visit a funeral home. That's something I'm sure you're going to agree to, everybody on this panel as well, that it's not something that you think of, oh, this is a great place, look at the pretty flowers and you know what's there. It's death, and to us, death is a scary thing because it is permanent. It's something none of us really look forward to, but it is a fact of life. And we try as funeral directors to make that an easy transition from death to burial to cremation, to make it the easiest possible for a family. In saying that, the reason why we're, again, pushing the cremation services and asking for that to be on a sign is it is a growing trend, and it is something that if I just put memorial or something else in there, they're going to drive down the street and look for another funeral home in Downers Grove, another funeral home in Westchester, somebody that's got cremation services. Oh, they do cremation. I'd like to go over there. So they're going to drive by my building in Westmont and leave, I guess, Westmont residents to go to other towns because we don't offer cremation, as they don't think, because it's not written anywhere.
I guess if it's that popular, I would just assume that people would, ask if that's a service that you offer.
I've been around 125 years, and people still think.
You look good.
You don't do cremations here, do you? And it's because it's not on our sign, that people don't understand that it's there.
Well, I kind of think that, you know your business better than we do.
I hope.
I don't really like it, and if you think that that's something that will help, the vernacular that you use, you think will be communicated to the general public, then, I guess I really don't have a problem with it. I think it's misleading, but if you don't.
I can use different terminology if we can come up with something here that would be better, but.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
Now, I'm not the funeral person, but I spent a little over 3 months in that building as we were going through the painting and the carpeting and all that sort of stuff. And we had a phone number on the front, and of course the door was open. And I kept track of 14 people who walked in at different times. So I had the name and the number, so either Tony or Matt could give them a call back. Out of the 14 people that came in, 9 people came in and asked if they could make arrangements for cremations. Do they do that here? And I said, no, we're not doing cremations here, but we certainly can do cremations because they didn't know. And 3 of the gentlemen said, well, is it possible for my family to come in and we have some type of a get-together before that happens to me? And what he was talking about was cremation services. It's becoming more popular now. When my grandfather was in business in the 20s and my uncles going on from them, not that many people had their bodies cremated. And I believe in the Catholic religion that it wasn't permitted. So you just didn't think about it. Now, because of a multitude of reasons that Matt has mentioned, more people are thinking about that. But at the same time, they're thinking about, well, what's going to happen to me, or what does my family do if all of a sudden I elect to be cremated? Do they just take me somewhere and that's the end? Where do we have the service? Well, yes, you can have a memorial service in a church or a synagogue or at the local VFW. But now what the funeral directors are saying and doing is saying, we have a wonderful facility here. This is somewhere you can come to hold your service. It's an educational opportunity because we're seeing more and more of it happen. So while maybe some of us personally are a little bit turned off by the term, I think it's something that we've got to move to and towards because that's the way we're going. That's the direction we're going in. So I think as we try to educate people and discuss, yes, we do cremation services, and it's the process. We don't actually do it. I think the sign will be welcoming in many respects. If you're familiar with Adolph's on Madison Street in Hinsdale, big sign in front. In fact, we have pictures of some of the funeral homes that have this very big signs displaying that service that's available. Blake Lamb is doing the same thing. Convoys is doing it. You're going to see more and more of it because more people are electing this as an option.
So there's funeral homes out there that point blank will not do a cremation service?
Can I ask a question back to you? What do you think of Toon Funeral Home? Do you think they do cremations there?
I honestly don't know.
Because they're not advertising it.
But they do.
How do they advertise it?
I thought every
I just want to
did.
know is, how many funeral homes today offer that service?
They all do.
Then
Well,
why
that's
do they
just
need a
it.
sign if they all?
Right.
Because you just answered the question when I asked you, do you think Toons do it? You said, I don't know.
Well, I never had a need to ask them. I don't know.
How about
That's
if we
why I
split
asked
the
the question.
difference?
Maybe they don't.
Yeah.
How about if we split the difference and they put the sign up, but in smaller letters underneath it, it says the cremation service underneath there. Have the bigger letters for the funeral part of it, and then underneath in smaller letters, they get their point across, people see it, and it's not blaring at you.
And I don't want to complicate it. What about cremation funeral services? Would that help? I don't know if that accurately describes what you're doing.
I personally, listening to the discussion, I thought I'm under the impression that, it's kind of like Gus's car repair, we repair cars. I thought all funeral homes will make whatever arrangements you want.
They will. They ship them out to the funeral homes. They do it. My dad
that's
was
why I asked
funeral director.
Any that won't do it.
Since they all do it.
So if they all do
I don't
it,
think
then
it's
insane.
necessary. I think what we've lost here over the years is something my father used to do, and that was the funeral directors. The people need to trust your funeral director to know whether you're getting something good or not. My father had joined everything there was, from Elks to Moose to Knights to everything. He was he was either at the funeral home or he was out doing his networking. And because it's a business of referrals, you've been treated properly, you've been fared, they've done you fairly, price-wise, they did everything they can. They trust you. People go because they trust the funeral director, not because they have a sign out there saying funeral or crematories. I mean, that's why I know.
I'm of the opinion that if it meets our sign code and it meets, size of everything, if that's how you want to advertise your funeral home, I think you ought to be able to do it the way you want.
Well, from a pure business standpoint, any business that you have has the right to advertise their services.
That are provided on site.
Well,
according to our ordinance.
Well, according to our ordinances, which may or may not be a good thing. It all depends on how you look at it. In reference, because of things being what they are, and 45% of the population of the state of Illinois is going in that particular direction. Bottom line is, funeral homes, just like anybody else, are jumping on the bandwagon, trying to get that step up on their competition. Funeral homes, car dealerships, whatever, you're in business, and you want to get as much business as you can, and advertising is part of that. I mean, I know, and I've never really thought any different of it, that you could go into any funeral home and say, I would rather have a cremation than I would the other way. I've never really thought of it any other way. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, to me, one way or another, to me, it doesn't matter. Whether it's on the sign or it's not on the sign, if anybody honestly thinks that it's going to be an actual crematorium, I think they really need to go take a real hard look at the property to begin with, because there's special zoning issues for those kind of things anyway. So,
right.
I mean, that's a whole
And
other avenue.
what they're offering on the premises is, as they describe it, cremation services.
Honestly, the only question I really have for you is the apartment upstairs. What's it going to be used for?
Mainly offices. The building is small, and there is not really an office there. So there are some rooms upstairs that I'm running out of room even on Westchester, which is a huge facility. I would like to have some offices up there, maybe my computer, some things. After work, I can sit down and do some things and be quiet up there.
Okay, so it's not going to be leased out for someone?
Oh, no.
So it's not going to be a residence?
No,
gonna
no,
be a
it can't be. There is no secondary entrance to get into. You have to go in the front doors of the funeral home
To get up there?
to get up there. So there's no, it can't be rented out to anybody else.
Now, you're going to have your caskets and urns all displayed in a certain room, or do you send them, or how are you going to do that? Because it's pretty small in there, and I don't know. I never paid attention to where Will had it. I only was in the service room.
Things are changing. We
can pick them up at Costco's, I know.
Well, things are changing. Things are done on monitors now. We have a showroom now in Westchester, instead of full-size caskets, people walk in, that's an eerie feeling. So we now have what they consider quarter cuts, meaning you're seeing the quarter of a casket and a drawer that pulls out that shows what it looks like in its entirety in the interior. A lot of funeral homes that are small, which is the West Suburban Funeral Home, are doing caskets onto monitors. So this is what you have. I'd like to see a wood in a cherry material. This is what we have, and you slide through from there.
That's good.
I can't really have 20 caskets, otherwise I don't have a room for visitation. So in that respect, I may have 1, maybe 2 caskets on hand, and that's about it.
Everybody's entitled to their opinion.
And we're about to get.
And in the funeral industry, there's a lot of them.
Period. But I guess we're all going to end up there eventually. But the thought of having crematorium there does not sit well with me either. I would just assume crematory services, crematorium, whatever, not be on the sign. That's my feeling, and my reasons have pretty much been.
Shall we carve this out as a separate voting item as part of the development permit
Well,
approval? Or?
my question was going to be if it says West Suburban Funeral Home and Cremation Services, is that what you were looking at?
It doesn't say crematorium, it says cremation services.
Yeah. So if it says that, I mean, that doesn't match our sign ordinance and what we allow, because they're not offering that service on site. Would it have to be a separate vote based on that alone?
Well, there's a difference of opinion. The applicant is saying they do provide that service on site. It's just like a funeral service, but it's for a cremated body. It's called a cremation service. That's what he's saying.
Yeah, it's gray. I think it's gray.
And other people can say, well, that can be construed as something different, meaning taking a body, sending it out to a crematorium, or actually acting as a crematorium. So I think it's a judgment call. It's what you think is best for the central business district and this particular business. If you can reach a consensus tonight, great. If not, we can put it on as a separate voting item.
I can live with cremation services in very small font.
I like trustee, that's exactly what I was going to say. I like trustee Scott.
Thought that was a good idea.
Do we get any sales tax out of this?
Yes, you do.
Okay. On a cremation service too?
Yes, you do.
On the cremation service?
Yep.
If there is a traditional service, there is urns that are being sold. There is what we have is considered a rental casket. That is tax coming off of that. And there is prayer cards, flowers. Okay. There's a lot of taxes that are coming off of that as well.
Are you okay with that?
It's a revenue-generating item.
Go to another town if it's...
I think as long as it has the word services after it, I suppose. I'm just the same. I think people would start looking, because they don't understand that they're not being done in the funeral homes. And that's what makes it rather difficult. I know when my father worked in Florida, they were now done in the funeral home.
Mm-hmm.
So he went from here where somebody else did it, they outsourced because you have to be licensed to do them here. And then when he went to Florida, he got licensed to do it. And so he was doing everything at the funeral homes there. They had everything.
Could you live with the smaller letters?
I would like not to.
Could you live with it?
Could I live with it?
At this point,
it's really a kind of a loaded question to say, can you live with it?
You said you had pictures. Do you have of other places?
Yeah, kind of like what the signage would look like.
Just to see what other places look like.
Yeah, you can put them right up on the...
oh, that's true.
That's an overhead.
Set it there and he'll zero in on it.
Oh, I get a Zoom?
See, it's the
Smaller.
services.
Oop.
He'll do it. No, there we go.
Yeah, he'll do it.
We'll fix it.
It doesn't matter.
I didn't bring the one from Adolph's. But we've
Go
got
ahead,
another
read
one.
it.
It's the little tiny.
That says that it's owned by a
print?
corporation.
It's
the fine print that nobody reads.
We're not owned by a corporation.
Something else. Yeah, looks fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that the only one you have, or are there others?
I have another one, but I forgot to bring it. I'll be glad to drop it off tomorrow if you'd like to see it.
You know, now looking at it, it's not as bad as.
Well, no, especially,
Yeah.
especially if Blake Lamb
Yeah, it's
read
bigger.
West Suburban.
And that
You know
would
what
be
I'm
bigger.
saying? If the name is, I think that's an attractive sign. Funeral home, I mean, it's
I
fine.
like family names on funeral homes, but that's my preference.
It's what?
I don't like West Suburban. I like family
Well, I
names
think of,
on
you
funeral
know, West
homes,
Suburban,
so
we have a lot
that's-
of West Suburban in this area. We have West Suburban
Yeah.
Humane Society, you know, we have West Suburban, and we have a lot of
The vet?
West Suburban vets.
I'm going to West Suburban. They'll think I'm going to the vets. So.
We'll just have a hard time finding out where you are until you don't reappear.
That's true.
So would it look something similar to this? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. The sign is just going to be on the awning coming down, just on the front part of the awning, not on the.
Part that hangs?
Not on the big part, just on the front, the lower part that
The
just
part
hangs
that-
down.
So it would
whatever.
just go across.
It's just going to go
That's
across.
fine.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Do
No
we
one
need
has
that
any-
out as a separate item, or can we just do it all at once?
So just do it all at once.
Thank you.
Yeah, the ordinance then won't mention anything about the signs other than they have, you know, they have to comply with the sign permit, and
Right.
sounds like it's a non-issue then by the
Mm-hmm.
majority of the board,
That's fine.
except the mayor.
And nobody feels compelled to make cremation services smaller.
Well, he is going to make the funeral home and cremation services will be smaller than the name, won't it?
Yes, West Suburban, and then, well, it's all going to be written across on the
All
bottom
one
of the
length?
awning. Well, no, it's not going to go all the way across. It's going to be ones on one side and then our phone number on the other side.
All right, one more time. West Suburban on top, cremation services on the
Not
bottom?
on, not on the large part, just on the,
On the awning.
on the
On the part that hangs down.
I know.
hanging part, yeah.
The
That's
flap
going
of
to
the
say West Suburban, so it's not going to be even that big because it's going to be, it's not going to stretch all the way across. It's going to be
So
one
even
side
West
to
Suburban
say.
is only
Thinking
going to
like
be down in that
Vincent Torrey
lower
sign.
part.
Yeah, yeah.
Only probably be, the letter's only going
And
to
then-
be
Yeah.
That big
4
anyhow.
inches, 5 inches high anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So that's why when you say, can you live with it smaller, I'm thinking, I don't know if you can read it then.
So it'll say funeral home and cremation
Cremation
services
services.
like that says
Yes.
there. I suppose as long as the services after that, I don't care.
The building looks really
All
nice.
that wording
It's
is
much
going to fit in that
improvement.
That's why it's probably going to be pretty
West
small.
Suburban Funeral Home and Cremation Services.
I wish I
4-inch
would've-
letters.
I didn't bring a picture with me.
Yeah, I can, there's a our artist rendering drawing from Photoshop if you want me to drop that off to take a look at it as well.
Yeah, he can.
So there won't be anything on the window then? It's just going to remain
And there
the
will
way
be
it
nothing
is?
on the top half of the awning as
Okay.
well.
Okay.
If you don't mind, then we can get a copy over the weekend,
Sure.
just so we can see what it looks like.
So you can put all that and the phone number.
On that little hanging portion.
Unbelievably, yes.
I would have thought at least West Suburban on the main part of the.
Yeah, kind of like the way
canvas.
Vincent Torrey is. They've got
Yeah.
Vincent Torrey on the top and then
the bottom part would be that,
chopsticks,
but
whatever.
you'd have the name there, but.
Of course, it wouldn't go for the funeral, would it?
Chopstick, no.
That wouldn't work. But the way Vincent Torrey's is, which is quite
Okay,
attractive.
anything further? Thank you.
Okay.
For coming in.
Looks good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Unfortunately, hope to see all of you soon.
Join some, join the chamber so we get to know you.
Yeah.
But you forgot to ask him if he's going to join the.
Yeah, you always ask if they're going to join the chamber. and
He's
they
gonna
didn't
join.
ask.
Oh, yeah.
Say-
No, I'm a member of the Chamber in Westchester, so I have no problem being a member here as well.
Okay, great.
I'm all for
Good.
Remember, it's a personal business. People have to get to trust you.
That's right. Okay. We're done.
Say something sarcastic.
Okay.
Next item, R4 and R5 zoning district review. Board to discuss a referral to the Planning and Zoning Commission to possibly rezone certain R4 and R5 zoning districts. Go ahead, Fred.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Village Board, direction was given, I believe, at the last Village Board meeting that the Trustee Scott had indicated that we appeared to have perhaps an overabundance of multifamily dwelling units in the Village of Westmont, and asked that staff prepare some thoughts on this. And we do have a document that we passed out to the Village Board. We hope that these dot points can serve as a facilitative guide to the discussion this evening. The first thing I'd like to share with the Village Board, if we can zoom out a little bit on this village map, and we wanted to indicate, this is a map that will help us in our discussion tonight. We've had Village Planning Engineer Kim Nickel take the focal point of the Westmont train depot, that focal point being of very great importance with regard to transit-oriented design development strategies, and draw a concentric circle of a half-mile radius around the train depot and a 1-mile radius around the train depot. And we kind of like to keep that in mind as we talk a little bit tonight about multifamily construction and allowable densities throughout the village, because the principles of a TOD study seem to indicate increased residential density within traditional walking distance, approximately 8 blocks or 1 mile of public transportation facilities. So if we can kind of keep that in the background and think about that a little bit as we walk through this discussion, we think that might be helpful. But we believe that Westmont does have a very high percentage of both rental units and multifamily units as compared to other communities. Census data suggests, and Village Manager Searle was kind enough to share some research that he had done individually to indicate that Westmont has approximately 59% of our total number of dwelling units appear to fall in the multifamily range. And we do have a chart that the manager prepared with, boy, he's got better eyes than I do. We're going to have to zoom in on that a little bit to see some of the other communities here. There, that's okay. George is zooming in, so we can maybe, that's a little bit better there. But as you'll note here, the grand prize winner for the highest percentage of multifamily units as a percentage of total dwelling units appears to be Schaumburg at 64%. And then it appears that Westmont comes in second place at 59, followed closely by Palatine at 57%. And you can kind of get a flavor for all of the other communities in the general Chicago Western metro area about their percentage of total multifamily units as a percentage of total dwelling units throughout their community. Now, upon advice of the village attorney and our village planner, Shannon Malik, who couldn't be here tonight, staff has strong feelings that the appropriate method to control the types of development in your community is through the zoning mechanism. We have that authority, not only as we have exceptionally that authority as a home rule community, but all municipalities under state statute have the right to zone different areas of the community for appropriate types of businesses, dwelling units, and development. Rezoning of existing R4, R5 areas may be considered to control future types of development in various areas of the community. However, one of the things we have to keep in mind is that when you rezone existing R4 and R5 multifamily general residence zones where multifamily structures currently exist, we may run the risk of rendering those existing multifamily dwellings as legal non-conforming structures. That's just one thing to consider as we enter this discussion. And as we said, the transit-oriented design strategies that are traditionally touted by developers and planners include promotion of higher residential density within walking distance of public transportation. So staff kind of looked at this from a couple of point of views and said multifamily areas outside the traditional 1-mile TOD radius could be likely candidates for rezoning to some other classification that would not allow multifamily construction. We do have, however, relatively few existing R4 and R5 multifamily zoning areas that contain a lot of green space to allow for future multifamily development. So those R4 and R5 areas that do contain either green space or large numbers of existing single-family structures that might be demolished in the future to provide for future multifamily development include the following 5 areas. Number 1 would be the undeveloped portion of the Bella Reeve Terrace property at 307 to 325 West 63rd Street. That development has kind of stalled, and we have part of that in development stage. There's another large part of that that remains largely undeveloped, even though the developer has approval for that. The remaining portion, number 2, of Ashton Grove condos at 6635 South Cass. You may remember that developer Tim Ryan came here with 2 very stately-looking condo buildings, planned to build a third, but that's when the bottom dropped out of the economy, and he asked for and received permission from the village board to extend his permission to construct there to allow for hopefully a recovery in the economic conditions before he would take the economic venture to build that third building. Also, number 3, the remaining portion of the Charleston Court development, which is kind of stalled down at 1227, 1247 East 63rd Street, remains an open green space that could allow for the construction of more multifamily development. Then we have an area not that necessarily has any green space in it, but the area on South Cass Avenue between Dallas and 59th Street does have a number of single-family dwellings that are aging that could be demolished in the future to allow for development of new multifamily construction. And we do have an area north of Cass Avenue between Naperville Road and Trowbridge, and this would include the area over on Warwick between Melrose and Chicago Avenue that is zoned R4 as well, that has some existing single-family homes that could be demolished to make way for new multifamily construction. So those are some of the areas that we have. And one other strategy that the board might want to consider if you're interested in limiting future multifamily construction has to do with existing large-scale multifamily structures that are nearing the end of their life expectancy and may be in somewhat of a dilapidated or a near blight condition that could be rezoned to other types of occupancies, either R3 single-family residential, perhaps an OR office research, a C1 commercial, or perhaps even a B2 general business district. But one of the things we'd like to respectfully request of the village board is that we approach this cautiously and not rush into it headlong. Important long-range development planning decisions like this require careful scrutiny and study. We hope that we don't make a rezoning that has unintended consequences down the road. One of the things we talked about at great length over the last couple of days as staff tried to help to prepare a framework for this discussion to assist the village board was that we thought about, well, we could rezone all multifamily zones R4 and R5 back to a single-family residential district. But by doing so, in doing that, we may have an unintended consequence of possibly exacerbating our stormwater problems that we have throughout the village. The reason for this is that when we do large-scale multifamily developments, we do require modern engineering studies and on-site detention of those. If we go back to single-family in some of those areas and allow large single-family homes to be built, those escape the modern stormwater zoning requirements, engineering requirements that other large-scale multifamily projects might require. So while we wouldn't think at first blush, logic wouldn't, indicate that we would probably cause more of a stormwater problem by rezoning back to single family, that could be an unintended consequence if we're not careful. We're also very close to releasing the RFP for the rewrite of the comprehensive plan for the village of Westmont. And certainly a comprehensive land use plan would be an integral part of that comprehensive plan study. That is very near on the horizon for us. We also would like to suggest to the village board that I kind of remembered back to my college economics and reading a book by Adam Smith called The Wealth of Nations. And Mr. Smith, who was a very famous, world-famous economist, talked about the invisible hand that works in the economy, in the capitalist economy, how the marketplace kind of dictates what the needs are and what the development should be in a particular area or community. And the national economic downturn has had a serious reduction, I think we'd all agree, in virtually all types of construction. Not only are we not seeing any more multifamily going up at this time, we're not seeing much single-family home construction either, and overall the development pace is down. So that invisible hand that Adam Smith has talked about is kind of working its effect into the marketplace through the effects of the national economy. We're also entering a season right now as we enter the fall season when we see a downturn in new development of either multifamily or single-family homes. So seasonally, we're entering a period where we're likely not to see much development over the next several months, and that does give us a little breathing space. but we're pleased to assist in any way that we can to provide research for the village board to help frame this discussion and reach a consensus on what might be best for the community with regard to the future development of additional single-family homes in the community and multifamily construction.
Fred, I can appreciate your suggestions or comments on it might be an unfortunate circumstance that we put ourselves into if we made a decision too quick. It's an unfortunate circumstance that we got us into at 59%. So I agree with you not to do anything rash or fast or anything like that. Something's got to be done.
Well, I thought the original part that we wanted to talk about in the R4 and the R5, even you got some R6 here, was putting a lot coverage percentage on these properties.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was...
That can still be accomplished as well.
Well, I mean, okay, so you wouldn't have to change your zoning issue. What you're doing is you would tighten up in those zoning areas what your percentage of lot coverage would be.
Those are
And it would force the engineering to have to be much tighter than what it presently is now, because
but it doesn't stop the multifamily.
It doesn't stop the multifamily. The problem is, okay, if you want to take the TOD, and trust me, I understand the TOD and all that, and within walking distance, then in a comprehensive plan, then you should be looking at probably 2 blocks, 3 blocks, east-west, north-south of these train tracks, rezone all that into a multifamily scenario. If you live by the TOD study as it's prescribed and what it's the transit, you know, I mean, it's like anything else. But I mean, we have areas in this town that small areas where residential borders. I mean, perfect example is up on Naperville Road, Grant, Lincoln. There's that little block up in there that has some old apartments in it right now, that I would say if those were to go by the wayside, that area you might want to consider putting back into single-family residential. Anything outside this zone, I don't have a problem. I myself don't have a problem being at R4 or R5. The problem we have is in the dense areas of land coverage that we have. In the areas, if we go back and look at the flooding areas that we're dealing with, is the problem. I mean, anybody right now could come in as a developer and take a section anywhere here and come in and ask us for a variance to have it rezoned from R3 to R4 or R5. But where we've left the back door open on those items is we really don't have any restrictions in R4 and R5. It's like, if you can make it fit in this little spot and prove to us that you're going to do this, then go ahead and build it. I mean,
We had that problem with the gentleman who had no restrictions on putting a duplex on amongst all those tiny houses. So if we put a lot coverage restriction in R4 and R5 and somebody wants to come in and build, you know, some complex or whatever, they can always come in and ask for a variance on our lot coverage. But what we didn't want was this, you know, what we had over on Burlington, where, you know, he's just wedging this thing in there.
It was just very simple wording. He took the second bedroom out or the third bedroom out and turned it into a den. Therefore, every variance that he was asking for went away.
Right. But that didn't affect the lot coverage.
Not at all.
But that's what we need to do is
But
put
you see,
a lot coverage.
I think that's what we need to investigate, that part of it. And I agree, we have way too much multifamily in this town. I think part of the problem is, and I think what you're going to see as we come out of this doldrums that we're in with building, I think you're going to find some builders, and I've actually heard it, that they're going to start looking at building the homes like you used to know, instead of these 4,000, 3,500 square foot
Already happening.
clusters. They're going to be looking to build the raised ranches again. They're going to be looking to build homes that are 1,800, 2,100 square feet. So now that is an advantage to towns like Westmont based on the lots that it has within the areas that it has. Now, there might be some areas that I think we need to zone in more on where we're having some of the major issues, but I also think we need to investigate lot coverages on your lots, regardless of what the zoning is. And I mean, there are some areas, I mean, perfect example, we know what the problem is up on North Warwick and Naperville Road, and there's some sections up in there that are still zoned as R4. Honestly, I'd like to see that reverted back to R3. There are a couple of sections there, I'd like to see that reverted back to R3. I understand there'd be some non-conforming issues, but it's like we've had other issues in this town that it's been a non-conforming structure. I mean, look at the non-conforming lot on North Grant.
259.
You know, I mean, there's an example. I mean, you know.
One of the other issues we have is what's the ramifications of what we've got, and we've got high mobility rates in our schools. So it doesn't always affect property values, but it affects what happens in the schools and how the kids are being taught. The kids coming in and out, and the more multifamily we have, the more issues we have. And here we're trying to improve our schools, yet we try to do it on one hand, and it's making it more difficult on the other.
And the other thing is, and Trustee Forsland and I both hate this terminology, empty nesters. A lot of that was marketed to us for numerous years. Well, it's great for empty nesters. It's great for empty nesters. Okay, what's that do for the school district? Not a whole lot. And I mean, the school district needs to have a stable base to operate off of. If you have more single-family dwellings, you get more families in, then I think you're going to run a better base for your school district, be it 201, be it Marker, West Hills, whatever. But I think that's something that we need to consider too, is just the basis with the school districts that we have in town and how to deal with that.
I think to Trustee Scott's point, the empty nesters actually are less of a burden on the schools. Well,
because they don't contribute to it, but if they ever have to come for time for a tax raise, they always say no.
Right, or, you know, we're not adding all these extra children into the system with overcrowding. So, I mean, you could look at it both ways, you know?
I think we've been trying that for a while, and we haven't seen it.
No.
So what happens is today's condo, which is supposed to be sold to an owner, is tomorrow's rental.
Exactly.
Now, whether you can put the kibosh on having condos being rented is another, you know, I don't know whether you can do that or not, but there has to be an avenue.
We've done it.
We've done it.
We've done it.
When there are planned developments, and which can do special use, so you can impose special conditions on it, and it gets recorded against the property. If someone comes in with a conforming building in the R4 district, no.
Yeah, we have it in our subdivision, don't we?
Yeah, we're just going to owner occupied.
We don't allow them to
That's by covenants, so.
Right, so you see, we don't have that covering all the other areas in the multifamily scenario. It's only as these have come into us one by one that we have actually said we want it owner occupied. I mean, the property on North Cass, they came into us and asked us if they could amend their association, saying it would be only owner occupied properties. We've had some that come back in and say, you know, well, I'd like to have 10% or I'd like to have 15%. Anything like that, condos and that should be owner occupied. I mean, it ought to be mandatory. I mean,
Citadel went, they came in here and asked for our permission.
Right, and I mean, it's one of those things, but I mean, I hearken back to the scenario too. I mean, your town has to be marketed more than just a business scenario, you have to market your town based on a lot of the economic-driven things. And one of the things that you have to market your town to, this may be off the subject a little bit, but you have to be able to market your schools, regardless of which district it is. And I think single-family versus multifamily can have a direct impact on how that operates. I mean, I don't have any kids in this school system. I've never had any kids in this school system. But I know one thing. I look at my tax bills like everybody else does. And honestly, if they came and asked for a referendum right now, I don't think it would go very far.
I agree. We have far too much multifamily housing, but I also agree with staff that it's not something that we need to just jump into. I even would go as far as to say we need to revisit the whole TOD study. That's already years and years old. Perhaps this is something we need to, you know, for the short term, look at case by case, continue to address lot coverage. I mean, we're going to be doing a comprehensive plan. Wouldn't this be part of our comprehensive plan, perhaps?
Well, couldn't we tear it apart at committee, too?
Mm-hmm.
Building and zoning, you know, we look at the zoning and we look at the building.
I mean, I don't think this would hinder us sending out requests for, you know, a comprehensive plan. I think what has to happen, I think we need to get together with a combined meeting with planning and zoning and kind of throw some stuff out on the table. What do we have in mind? You know, what do we have in mind? What do we want in the B1? What do we want in the C district? I mean, what do we want?
Well, what does that do for Northeast Acres?
What do you want up there? I mean, what's the overall
And what don't we
plan?
want to see?
And what don't we want to see?
No, I think Bob has a valid question.
Right.
No, I mean, I think that
I mean,
needs
what
to
do
be
we do
addressed.
for Northeast Acres, because they're the ones that are,
What does all this do for them?
They're
I
the
think you
ones
gotta-
that what?
they're the ones that are, you know, underwater.
In the,
The moratorium, whatever we do, but I can't see, no matter what happens, even if you get the plumbing straightened out over there, the sewers, adding any more multifamily homes in that residential area.
I
we
couldn't
can
agree more.
You know,
in
we're
that
looking
area.
at that area, focusing it, and as Christopher Burke moves through parcels, perhaps we should be looking at those parcels just ahead of them with our own internal comprehensive, what do we want to see, what don't we want to see, and if something needs to be rezoned or changed, we do it and get it done. Because I'd hate to see them come in and try to fix something as is and then have somebody come in and go, it's zoned, I can build Lordy knows what, and screw up our whole, just what we paid to get fixed. Might make it better, but might not.
okay, this may come out wrong, as it usually does. But what do we want for our community? Why do each of us move into this community? You want a place where you can raise a family and feel safe. And I hate coming out wrong is the Norman Rockwell theme. I mean, that's what we look for. I mean, that's what, you know, if you leave Chicago and you come out here, you're looking for that open space at home, that backyard with the dog and all that stuff. We got 59%. How many people are we attracting out here if they look at that? How many people would come to Westmont and saying, wow, look, they got 59% multifamily. If that keeps going up, are we going to get the homeowner?
We're going to attract renters, because they're going to go, boy, I've got a lot to choose from.
We're already attracting.
So
we're already
what is
attracting
it that we'd like? And I think
and
we
there's
got
nothing
away
wrong
from
with
it.
renters, but there's a percentage.
Exactly.
It has to be fair all the way around.
And I think we've.
And the bigger issue is the schools, because they can't handle the mobility rate of kids coming in and out all the time.
And the high numbers.
And I think you said it. It got away from us. We're up to 59%. I don't know how it got there, but I think, you know, through the excitement of the economy, when somebody's paying $200,000 for a lot, put up a home, put up a building, they're going to get more for multifamily because they can sell two of them for $400,000, $500,000, and they're going to make heck of a lot more money than just putting up a house.
I mean, we look at hindsight, if we had to redo this all over again and go back in time, I don't think we'd do it the same way.
Exactly.
Well, plus the other thing is, you know, when you look at suburbs whose downtowns are booming and they have the mixed use, and, you know, some of them have tremendous condo projects right by their train stations, and
Downers
they
Grove.
sell like, yeah, Downers, I mean, all over, you know, all the collar counties. And unfortunately, you know, our Richmond station and our condos down the street, we don't have that. But a lot of those towns, they have central multifamily. That's how it's planned, and they don't have the ponds and the Twin Lakes and the Cass Avenue, you know, condo buildings, which many are rented out as you go down the street towards Ogden.
But you have to ask the question, in those particular communities, how did that happen? How did those complexes come about? How did that type of project come about? How did it happen? That's the question. And that is something that we need to address in the comprehensive plan. Mm-hmm. We all know what the answer to the question is, and we don't want to use that little thing, but that's how it gets done, and you plan your work and you work your plan. You try the best you can to deal with your residents in your town and the things that they want and their wishes and everything that they want. Unfortunately, in some cases, you have some residents that don't want anything to ever change. You want to keep it the way it's always been. On the other hand, we want to see a more vibrant downtown. We want to see a more vibrant business district on the south side. Well, if that's what we're looking at, or if that's what the town's looking at, then there's going to be tough decisions that have to be made.
Well, one doesn't happen without the other.
That's right.
So where do we go?
The issue I think is we have the zoning issue in front of us, and we all have that concern, and it's of great importance. I think this is just the tip of the iceberg, but we need to, for a period of time, we need to look real hard at anybody that wants to come in here and put in multifamily. I understand that we have the zoning there, and then come and go, well, we can't. Well, you know what? No, our village board has said, no, you can't. We'd like to know what it is that you're going to put in there.
Well, here's what I think. You know I'm going to tell you what I think.
Yeah.
I think we need to move forward and do the rezoning that we talked about at the EDC meeting for the Warwick area. I think we have to do that. Mm-hmm. That's what I'd like to see us do immediately. I think we also have to revisit the TOD, look at it, and as Ellen said, what do we want for the future? I think we definitely have to look at lot coverage for multifamily, and any multifamily that comes before us now, we need to look at case by case and look at very hard depending on where it is in the town. And then, you know, the last thing is the comprehensive plan, because all three of those things are going to play right into the comprehensive plan. So,
Let me ask a question. That's what we all think. What does the public think? Is this something, when you do your comprehensive plan, that we do a town hall meeting where we allow the public to come in and give input?
A series of those, I would hope, trustee, you know, with different constituency groups. A meeting of homeowners association people, a meeting of service clubs, a meeting of downtown business owners, a meeting of church groups, a meeting, you know, and develop a consensus vision for the community.
Because when we catch a lot of flack because the downtown isn't as vibrant as everybody would want it to be, but I don't think they understand why that's the reason.
now I will tell you, when we had those TOD meetings, we were lucky if we had 5 people show up.
Yeah, I mean, this is the whole part.
And we had 20, 30, how many?
At least you can say you tried.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean,
at least you do it.
Biggest thing is, all I can say is, to the residents of Westmont, everybody out there, start coming up with the ideas of what you want in this town. Step up. Let us know. I mean, you know, we're sitting here trying to figure out what it is, and we don't have all the answers. So send us something. Give us some ideas.
At the risk of, and I agree with you, but at the risk of I'm sure there's a few people yelling at their TVs right now, going, well, bring some businesses into downtown. Well, that's easily said, and wouldn't that be wonderful? That, you know, there's that concept of someone has to make that financial commitment to open a business, and, you know, we have all kinds of problems. You don't just say bring them in and they magically appear. There's only about 50 different factors in that. But I think there's other issues. I mean, we're hearing, you know, should we have another railroad crossing? We need to hear from people so that we can discuss pros and cons. And when the pros outweigh the cons, then that will be the way we will go. But, you know, sitting in your living room yelling at a TV, or, you know, not paying any attention and complaining loudly later, then we'll have to do with what we think is best.
As the mayor and a lot of us say, we have a lot of volunteers that step to the plate in this community. This is your community. We need to know what it is that you want. And if you've got some ideas on this, throw them on the table. Because if you have a smaller person come in and make a commitment to a business in the downtown, you have to make a commitment as a resident to patronize those businesses as they go in, to see to it that they continue. But I mean, right now, all we're hearing is, well, we need more businesses, we need more this, we need more that. Okay, well, there's more to it than just saying we need more businesses.
Okay, we are so far off track right now.
And I agree, we've got to get the public input, but the little public input that we have gotten says no more multifamily.
Right.
I haven't heard any residential going, yeah, I want lots more.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that's what we're hearing. If that's not what the public wants us to do, I mean, if they want multifamily more, yeah, tell us. But what we're hearing, and we're here representing them, and what they've told me or told a lot of us is
no more.
No more.
See,
At least not now.
Multifamily was used, it was great, depending on the size, for buffers. But at a certain point, you've got your buffers. You know, they're now the TOD and stuff is trying to expand the buffer out. And that's where I disagreed with it. I think buffers are nice for maybe the very central area in town, maybe certain areas that, you know, you're trying to keep it the nice, quiet residential.
Can we throw this to committee and come up with an agenda? Because we've still got a lot of things to do in an executive session. No offense, but.
I'd just like to make a historical comment. How did we get where we are today? We got where we are today with a high number of apartment buildings, not townhomes, not condominiums, because of the people that sat on this board 30, 40 years ago. They're the ones that annexed and rezoned the property out north where we have high-rise apartment buildings. Their feeling was, that's so far away from downtown, we'll never be bothered by that. They're going to donate a brand-new fire truck to the village of Westmont if we give them permit to build some of those structures. That's the kind of thinking that was going on then. That is not the thinking that is going on today with this board. But unfortunately, we have to live with all of those past decisions. We have not approved an apartment building, quote unquote, for 30, 35 years in this town. There have been but they're either condominiums or townhomes, and we've always insisted that they be owner-occupied. Now, true, some of them are renting them out because they can't sell them, they can't do anything, and they're holding all this paper, but it's coming across like we have not done that much to try to control these things. We have done a lot. We've stopped a lot of the craziness that was going on in this town, whether it be by zoning or building codes. People see that, they appreciate that. We're going in 50 different directions tonight. We're on the right track, but it's going to take us a while. And maybe we can't make all these decisions without some input from someone else. But I think our intent is where we need to go. But you're right, we need to go on. We need to discuss this, but we need to set up the forum in order to move ahead to
And the
do what-
intent is we don't want people looking back 30 years in the future saying,
What were
you
they
didn't do
thinking?
the right thing.
Absolutely.
You know what, I'm just looking back 6 months from now.
I lost my crystal ball, so I don't know for sure what's going on.
Ron, could we make sure we get this on the next Building and Zoning Committee meeting, which I think is coming up?
Absolutely. And I think there were some good suggestions here that we can make a part of that agenda and move ahead with those recommendations. So,
But I want you to look for that magic wand and
yes, sir.
put it to good use. Okay, anything further? Next item, Class 2 liquor license reduction, 800 East Ogden. Or to consider reducing the number of Class 2 liquor licenses by one due to the closure of Guava, a restaurant formerly located at 800 East Ogden Avenue.
We'll be exceptionally brief.
Yes.
Guava closed approximately 4 months ago, and therefore their license has been forfeited. Staff recommends reducing the number of Class 2 licenses by one. Any questions?
Thank you, good night.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Should we put that on committee?
Nice and brief.
Should we put that on a committee? or anything?
Yeah, let's put it on a committee.
Next item, resolution for maintenance of streets and highways by municipality under the Illinois Highway Code, or to consider the IDOT resolution for the resurfacing a portion of Bentley Avenue as part of the Village of Willowbrook's upcoming resurfacing project.
Mayor, before I talk about that, I just want to go back real quickly. We're going to remove the item from the agenda on the R4, R5. There's nothing to do on Monday night. The next scheduled Building and Zoning Committee meeting isn't until December.
December, I just saw
So
that.
I think we'll need to talk to the committee co-chairs and maybe come up with a special meeting date.
That works.
There are plenty of open dates in between,
Good.
so I just wanted to mention that.
Okay. Sooner is better.
Yeah, the next several items actually relate to the motor fuel tax. This first one came about because the Village of Willowbrook is doing a project to improve Bentley Avenue, and a portion of that is in Westmont, and they approached us and asked if we would participate in that. And this resolution makes an adjustment in our motor fuel tax allocation in order to participate in that project so that we can take advantage of the contractor that's going to be in town at that time.
The section is not very large that you're talking
It's
about.
120 linear feet.
Yeah, 120 feet is what we're dealing with.
How about number 9, Ron?
Number 9 is actually our larger annual street maintenance program. This is in the amount of about $700,000. In your packet, there is a list of streets and a map that shows you the locations as well. This is something we do annually. And we identify the streets that we think need to be addressed based on priority, and those are done each year with motor fuel tax, which, as we talked about in the past, is all tied to our population per capita rate that we get from the state of Illinois.
I think that's a little over, what is it, 5 miles or something like that total? Something like
It
that.
is, no, it's 2.3 miles.
2 point, and then same thing with the next one.
Shall I go on to the next one?
Yes, go on to number 10.
The next one's actually somewhat unusual. It's part of the state's emergency repair program, and we want to thank both Senator Dillard and Representative Belloc. As they did for all the communities that they represent, they were able to get this allocation of additional motor fuel tax through the state's capital program. This amounts to $200,000, and again, in your packet, there's a map that shows the locations. It's going to include, I'll just read off the streets, Grant Street, portion of Grant Street between 55th and Dallas, Hudson Street, 55th and Quincy, Chicago Avenue, Grant Street. Wait a second. Actually,
It doesn't make sense.
I'm sorry, I'm reading actually the,
Oh, wait, okay, I got it.
that's the other program.
I don't see it in here. I don't.
Okay, I don't see in the
It's in the
packet
packet.
the map, but I'll get that to the board for
I
for
got
Monday.
2 of the first one, but
Yeah.
not the second one.
So that's our mistake. We'll get that sent out to you tomorrow.
Okay, any questions on either 8, 9, or 10? Okay. Next item, interoperable emergency radio project. Board to consider an intergovernmental agreement with DuPage County to provide a countywide inoperable emergency dispatch radio system.
Okay, in your packet is the draft IGA intergovernmental agreement from the ETSB, the Emergency Telephone and Systems Board. This is a project that the county's been working on for a number of years, since approximately 2004, with the idea of bringing interoperable communications to both police and fire throughout the county. They looked at creating a private system for a couple of years, determined that that cost was prohibitive. So they went back and they looked at an existing system that Motorola has built throughout the state called Starcom 21. And that was looked at earlier this year by a subcommittee of the ETSB, and it was recommended as being something that would fit the needs of the county. And now it's in a process where each of the communities throughout the county is looking at these intergovernmental agreements. I think we passed out actually a modified version of that agreement that includes input from both our police and fire department. It's not complete. Since the packet was put together and since the agenda was put together, we also learned that the DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference is going to be putting together a group of agencies to talk directly with the ETSB about the IGA. They're looking for comments by October 4th, and based on that information, we would like to recommend that we postpone this, get our comments to that group, and see what kind of feedback we get from them as well, from a legal standpoint.
Because there's always the possibility of the cost factor being even less with that.
Well, it's not, I mean, the cost factor's been identified. There's still some governance issues that I think need to be ironed out, and that's one of the reasons that the group is trying to get together to talk with the county. The ETSB board initially talked about doing individual intergovernmental agreements with each of the municipalities, and I think since this process has begun, they've kind of changed their mind about that. So there's an interest in trying to come up with an agreement that would be a consistent agreement throughout the county.
How would this work with the new dispatching? Any problems?
No, DuPage, Downers Grove, has been part of this project as well, and they support. I mean, they also enacted a letter of intent like we did, and most of the agencies throughout the county did. It would be our intent and their intent to bring that technology, to that new dispatch facility. But most of the technology is out in the field with the police officers and the firefighters.
So you want to pull that out?
Pull it for a later discussion.
I was going to suggest we just postpone it to the next set of meetings. I think we'll have that input and possibly be able to act on it at that point in time.
Okay. Any other comments? Finance ordinance number 11.
Waive the reading.
Request to waive the reading. Purchase orders. Questions on purchase orders? No questions? Moving right along. Is there anything else to be brought before the board at this time? If not, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session as requested regarding personnel and pending litigation.
So move, Seneca.
Second, Scott.
Roll call.
To flip a page.
And
Trustees.
pending litigation.
And pending litigation, yes.
I just thought of that.
Trustee Seneca?
Yes.
Trustee Klebanow?
Yes.
Trustee Fleming?
Yes.
Trustee Scott?
Yes.
Trustee Forsley?
Yes.
Trustee Emery?
Yes.
This meeting is adjourned to executive session.